Coming up, from the August 19 council meeting, the first member of the public to address a meeting weighs in on the Leichhardt Pool water temperature. Third time lucky for the Studiosity learning tool in Ipswich Libraries. Council takes the pulse of its workforce. And what's behind this exchange between Mayor Teresa Harding and Councillor Paul Tully?
So are you saying you're proposing that in the workshop we discuss having local officers not in the library and go back to having electoral officers? Is that what you're saying?
No, but if I have a seconder, I can just expand on what I've just said.
It's Friday, August 20, 2021, and I'm Alan Roebuck. Welcome to Ipswich Today, which acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which it is produced and pays respects to elders past, present and emerging. This podcast is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. Ipswich City Council held its regular monthly meeting on August 19. Those wishing to view it live were disappointed because of a technical glitch. However, the meeting was recorded and is now available to watch on YouTube. Shortly after the meeting, I caught up with Mayor Teresa Harding. Mayor Harding, thanks for talking with Ipswich today.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
August's meeting began with a condolence motion for a very well-known Ipswich Meals on Wheels identity.
Yes, Jane White is known to many, with thousands in our city, and she passed away on the 4th of August after a very short illness. And she'd served as the Meals on Wheels coordinator for 36 years. So she's certainly made a difference to so many people's lives. It wasn't just about a meal, it was about the company and just the enthusiasm that she brought to that role that really enthused the entire organisation. Council had its first public participant in the shape of Ken Alderton from 1 Mile. He was talking about the Leichhardt Pool. What were his concerns? Ken's concerns were that the opening hours of the Leichhardt Pool aren't the same as other pools, they're shorter, and also the temperatures usually sit around that 28, 29 degrees, when a few years ago they used to be around that 30, 32 degrees. Now, it is standard with other pools, but he's asked us to look at that. So it was really great. Many people know that Ken was a prolific letters to the editor writer, I think, when the QT was printed, and he's a regular visitor to council. So he was quite concerned. He wrote off to council back on the 2nd of August with his concerns. He didn't like the response he got from council. He approached his councillors and put in a public participation in today, and he spoke for about 10 minutes about the topic. It was very well researched, and so we'll certainly take on board what he's told us, and we've actually asked the organisation to come back to us in November with a full report on the 10-year history of the temperatures, the opening hours, what's in our contract, and any other relevant matters.
Another item which has come before council again, this is coming to the full council this time after being at committee, is the library's lease of a program called Studiosity. Firstly, what is Studiosity?
Look, it's an on-demand online tutoring service. So you just have to be a member of the Ipswich Libraries, and you can actually have that online one-on-one tutoring with someone. So basically the people who are using it at the moment are primary school and high school students, and that's been quite helpful for the people that are there. But I guess the reason why it has come to council quite a few times is that the use of it has dropped off quite a lot. And in the last year, I think about only 26 students used it, and it cost $24,000. So we're just trying to make sure people work very hard to pay their rates and just be very cognizant of how that money is spent. So we've agreed to allow that extension just for an extra year. Originally it was asked for 3 years, and we'll see if council can boost that participation. That way it costs less per user, but also just to help students who are struggling, and that has been happening during COVID.
That sounds like a common sense outcome, just to renew for a year, and if the numbers can't get up, well then it's probably goodbye Studiosity.
I guess we'll look at what happens in 12 months' time.
Another item on the agenda is the Organisational Performance presented by the CEO. What does this tell councillors?
We instituted this earlier this year, and we felt it was very important that council was acting more like a board and being more strategic, that the CEO should always report how is the organisation tracking in the last 12 months. And it's her opportunity as well to highlight things and allow her to discharge her duty as well. So it's been really good. It's quite a good summary for anyone who likes to see what council's up to. And so this month's report looked at Spark, it looked at the opening of 1 Nicholas Street and the Children's Library, and as well as looking at the performance report and our budget and how the city's coping with COVID.
In addition to that, there's a report about people and culture. Now, that's contained in a Queensland Government quarterly report. So let's go to that report. Why is Council doing a quarterly report back to the Queensland Government?
Look, we only came out of administration, less than 18 months ago. So, the state government who do, I'll say, the local government gives council their power. So we are an instrument of state government, and they want to make sure that post-administration that council is I guess running well and certainly incorporating proper governance mechanisms and making sure that the organisation is doing what it's supposed to do, not doing what used to happen, I guess. So I'm really pleased that the advisor that was here for 12 months and that was not extended. And the Director General of the Department of Local Government has requested that we just give him a fortnightly report on how the organisation is going, especially a lot of those change management programs to change a lot of the governance mechanisms that just weren't in place until the administrator arrived.
Well, tucked within that report, as I mentioned, is a report on people and culture, which is the flash name for talking about the staff, and it has a sentiment survey contained in that. So council staff is surveyed on a regular basis. What are the surveys telling you now?
Look, I think it's really great. We've done, 6 pulse surveys over the time, and we've had, about 3,500 responses. So the latest ones do centre around leadership. The staff do want to see that their council organisational leadership, the CEO and the general managers and their direct supervisors are capable, are visible, and acting in the best interest of council. Also, there's discussions about resourcing and making sure that people can do their job. They want to make sure that they have the adequate resources and staff to do the job as well.
The Local Government Association of Queensland holds an annual conference with councils all over the state, and each council gets an opportunity to put up some motions for possible change at a state government level. And an old chestnut for Ipswich has been around school infrastructure, lack of car parking, new schools and regional infrastructure.
When a new school is put in place, the state government will sort of mandate it, and the council need to then pay for all the road, the access and all that sort of stuff around it. There's no money, and that usually costs us millions of dollars. So we feel as though it's a fairer way if the state also contribute to that. So one of the motions is making sure that the state government and specifically the Department of Education can't have an agreement between us to making sure that we do have a proper infrastructure around the schools and a proper maintenance infrastructure agreement as well. And we also put up a third motion looking at the fact that the current South East Queensland Region Plan, which was signed off in 2017, where Ipswich agreed to take in 30% of the growth in South East Queensland, but we're not getting that corresponding infrastructure funding in state or federal budgets. So we need to have those discussions with the state and federal governments to make sure that we need a fair go. We are taking a lot of growth, but we also need transport infrastructure, school, health and other services as well.
New councillor office space in the libraries at Springfield Central, Redbank Plains and Rosewood was on the council agenda again this month. What's been resolved going forward?
Look, there was an amendment to the recommendation, so there's a keenness for all of us to be able to spend more time with residents in the community, and that's why we are looking at having a presence in local libraries. Councillor Tully asked for a recommendation to look outside libraries and looking at other spaces as well, and that was, I guess, debated quite heavily. From the meeting, here's Councillor Paul Tully explaining his position.
Yeah. No, what I'm suggesting is that we're having a general workshop in relation to this the motion. This is not to amend the other motion in any way. It's just to have a general workshop, and the way that the proposed motion today is worded, it would restrict a wider discussion at that workshop, not necessarily of 4 or 8 electorate offices, but just whether or not local office space would be best positioned at, for example, a library. I understand, for example, there might be limited space, particularly at the Redbank Plains Library. So is there some other solution, still consistent with the motion that went through council at the last meeting? It's not to open up or broaden or substantially change the intent of the previous motion. It's simply to enable that workshop, just to have a slightly widened expansion and consideration of the overall issue.
While this explanation from Councillor Tully sounds plausible, Mayor Harding went on to detail what was resolved at the meeting.
And it was decided that we would only look at facilities that council currently, own and manage as well. So the whole intent behind this motion is to make sure that that councils can spend more time with residents, or residents can spend more time with their councils. They're more accessible, but it also has to be at minimal cost and minimal impact to the organisation.
Back in June, Council decided to start making changes to the way rubbish is collected from households. What's the latest on the Food Organics, Green Organics trial?
Look, a lucky 1,000 people in Ipswich. So there's about 500 residents in Raceview and 500 in Belbert Park, and all have been contacted. But they're going to get a free green bin. And as part of this trial, we want to reduce the amount of landfill. So since 2018, the Chinese government, and I'm just talking outside of Ipswich now, but basically China decided not to take any more recyclables from Australia. And so it meant that the federal government and the state government have asked councils who look after waste to reduce landfill, and there are certain targets on us. So we know that in our normal red top bin, that about 30 to 50% of what's in our red top bin is actually food organic or garden organic. So what we're doing now is we're going to give a free green bin that's going to be picked up weekly, so that people can put their grass clippings, their garden stuff, their food scraps in that. That's picked up every week. That's the smelly stuff. But their red top bin, which will have the non-smelly stuff, will only be picked up fortnightly. So we're trialling that for 12 months with over 1,000 residents. And it's really important to get that honest feedback from them to see what worked and what has worked and does work. Recently, the New South Wales government mandated that all councils must do this by 2030, and certainly ourselves, Townsville, Lockyer Valley and Rockhampton will be the first 4 councils in Queensland that they'll be trialling these type of FOGO trials.
I guess it's fair to say that people don't like change, Mayor Harding, but the writing is really on the wall if you look overseas as well. Apparently this is quite common in Europe.
Look, obviously any change is going to get people saying no, but the overall response in the surveys from those 1,000 residents has been so positive, which is, I was quite surprised because it is a big change, but I think people are willing to give it a go. They know that change has to happen and the cost of disposing of waste is getting higher and higher. So if we can find a more cost-effective way and also it's something better for our environment, I think people are really open to the idea.
The August meeting of Council wrapped up with a notice of motion from Councillor Sheila Ireland, clearly not happy with the current setup with 2 councillors per division or the number of divisions.
At the end of a meeting, councillors can put forward a notice of motion that will be discussed at the next meeting. So this motion wasn't discussed, but Councillor Ireland asked for council to look at the boundaries. We'll see what happens. As part of the boundary changes when they did come in 2019, is that council already has an obligation in 2022, so next year, to do some community consultation on the boundaries. So there's already a review that's going to be happening. So we'll just see if the notice of motion proceeds or not. But I think that is something that we're just trying to work out the best way. And we've discussed this at previous council meetings that in 2016, at that election, there were 10 divisions, and each councillor represented about 19,000 residents. We now have 4 divisions, and there's about 57,000 residents in each one of those now with the population growth. So I know there's 2 councillors that most community groups do expect both councils to attend, or businesses, or when you're seeing residents. So basically the councils are now looking after about 3 times the number of residents, and they have also a lot less resources and a lot less staff to support them. So they're working very hard, and I think we're just looking at how we respond and service and provide a really good service to our residents. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one.
And finally, Mayor Harding, there's been a lot in the news recently about council's court battles with 3 waste companies and the amount of money, time and effort it is costing in the Planning and Environment Court.
The amount of money that the ratepayers of Ipswich have spent on this is eye-watering. It's cost over $6.6 million, and once we get all the final bills, it may go up to $8 million. Basically, we're just asking waste operators to work within the parameters that they've been legally assigned some time ago. They wish to expand that and put more landfill and more smells out into our city. I think it's really tragic that we've had to go to battle, but they do want to continue to expand. One of the things in the Planning Environment Court that's come through is that no matter who wins, you can't get costs. So the people of Ipswich will never get that money back. And it's a real pity. that this is happening. But the people of Ipswich have spoken loudly. They don't want the expanded landfill. They certainly don't like the smells. And it's been a really complex court case. The magistrate said it's the most complex case that's ever gone before the Queensland Planning Environment Court, and we don't expect to hear a judgment until next year. So obviously we're hoping that the law will do the right thing and uphold what the residents of Ipswich would like to happen.
Mayor Teresa Harding, thanks again for speaking with Ipswich Today.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, listeners.
And a reminder, you'll find handy links in the show notes. Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This podcast is also listener-supported. Please make a once-only gift or regular donation to help keep it online. Just go to ipswichtoday.com.au and click the donate button on the homepage to make a payment through PayPal. Follow and stream this podcast from your favourite app, including iHeartRadio and Amazon Music Podcasts, or play Ipswich Today from smart speakers. Music is supplied by Purple Planet Music. This is Alan Roebuck. Thank you for listening.